Greenland. The world's largest island, an Arctic haven for everything from sharks to polar bears. Yet since 2019 it has been a target for Donald Trump. What has since been an oscillating level of threats and false promises has in recent weeks exploded into one of the biggest geopolitical crises that the Arctic has ever seen. President Donald Trump has revived his push to bring Greenland under US control, refusing even to rule out the use of military force. This has triggered immense pushback from Greenland, from Denmark, from across Europe, from as far-flung as China, and even reportedly from within the US military itself. Welcome to the Arctic Beyond in association with the Rorschach Arctic Update. This is what's happened in the last week, who did it, when it happened, and why it matters. In early January, President Donald Trump argued that Greenland, which is an autonomous territory of Denmark with a population of roughly 57,000 people, is essential to US national security. This is Donald Trump speaking to reporters on Greenland.
I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security.
Trump has repeatedly claimed that with the Arctic opening up, due to things like melting sea ice, strategic competition is becoming ever more important in the Arctic, and the US cannot allow rivals and adversaries to gain influence in the Arctic.
If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will, and I'm not letting that happen.
He has specifically said that he cannot have Russia or China as a neighbour for the sake of national security, which... Right. So this is a gift I was given as a child. Okay? First globe. Child's baby's first globe, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I was obsessed with all things map-related even when I was that young. So, I mean, there's Greenland. Wait, get it on camera. There's Greenland. Okay, but, would you look at that? Would you look at that? That looks to me like Alaska and Russia. Huh. Did you know Alaska and Russia are neighbours? Because Donald Trump doesn't. And of course, he has refused to rule out the use of military force to annex Greenland, repeatedly saying he will acquire Greenland one way or another, talking about the easy way and the hard way. One way or another, that's a phrase he has repeatedly used in recent months. Here he is in March last year.
And I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
And again, just days ago.
But one way or the other, we're going to have Greenland.
The White House has confirmed that multiple options are under discussion for annexing Greenland. They could be diplomatic, they could be economic, and they could be, as they call it, security-related. Which is a nice euphemism for flying a C-130 aircraft over a remote Arctic community and raining freedom down from above. On January 8th, Reuters reported that US officials have been discussing direct payments to Greenlanders as one way of incentivizing Greenlanders to push to come under US control, and these figures are ranging anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 per Greenlander. A proposal that at the high end, if we're talking 57,000 people in the country, would cost roughly $5.7 billion. Though, when locals in Greenland heard about this idea, they weren't impressed.
Oh, no, he could never buy us. Ever in my life, I would...
500,000?
No.
A million?
Not...
You can say any number, but
any number in the world, and we'll know.
Officials have emphasized that these are just ideas under discussion. It's not official policy. On January 9th, the backlash inside Greenland became clear and blunt. The leaders of every political party in Greenland came together in a remarkable show of unity to issue a joint message that is as simple as it is strong. We don't want to be Americans. We don't want to be Danes. We want to be Greenlanders. Okay, maybe you think politicians don't represent the people. Well, this is Jess Berthelsen, the chair of Greenland's largest labour union, who rejected Trump's rhetoric outright, saying, "We are not for sale." Maybe you're anti-union as well. Okay, well, what about asking the people directly? Well, polling really underscores that rejection. There's a poll that was conducted by Sermatsiak, the nation's largest newspaper, which shows that around 85% of Greenlanders oppose joining the United States. Even Republican politicians are against the idea. Here is Senator Murkowski of Alaska, who is much more of an Arctic representative than Donald Trump ever will be.
Priority, and that as a priority for the U.S. To take Greenland, that military action is an option. And that, to me, Mr. President, is profoundly troubling.
On January 11th, Nordic and Danish officials publicly rejected any sort of assertion, any idea that Trump's claims of Russian and Chinese increased military activity and influence around Greenland is happening. They are posing no increasing huge threat to Greenlandic and therefore US national security. Here is Trump again making the accusation.
Countries have to have ownership, and you defend ownership, you don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland. If we don't do it, China or Russia will. Not going to happen.
Danish and Greenlandic officials speaking to the Financial Times made the situation very clear. There has been next to no interest from China since an attempt to help build several airports on the Arctic island was rebuffed by Denmark in 2018, under heavy pressure from the US. A few attempts to fund mining projects have also fallen through. Greenland has been steadily removing any Chinese influence from the island at the behest of the United States. They're already doing what you want. And officials say that most Russian Arctic naval activity remains far from Greenland. It's staying along Russia's own northern coastline. You want to know what Russia's major Arctic opponent is right now? It's Norway. It's not Greenland, it's Norway. You see, Russia has a major part of its nuclear arsenal, a big part of its northern fleet, and a huge amount of infrastructure surrounding its LNG, its natural gas industry, on the Kola Peninsula, which is next to Norway. And Russia wants to make it very, very clear that NATO cannot build up its own forces beside the Kola Peninsula to then attack what Russia sees as very valuable in regards to its military and economic activity there. And then beside from that, Russia has been making increasing threats towards Svalbard too in the last year. But absolutely nothing about Greenland. Simply put, all of this just undercuts all of Donald Trump's main justifications for this annexation. That same day, of course it was the same day, it's all happening too quickly, the crisis really escalated. Multiple outlets have reported that Donald Trump has asked US Special Forces commanders to begin drafting contingency plans for a possible invasion of Greenland. According to the reporting, senior military leaders have raised their own concerns and objections to any sort of idea of planning this. Denmark, as you can imagine, has responded to this pretty forcefully. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has said that this is a fateful moment, warning that any US military move against Greenland would threaten NATO itself.
Jeg vil også gøre klart, at hvis USA vælger at angribe et andet NATO-land militært, så hører alting op, altså inklusiv vores NATO og dermed den sikkerhed, som er blevet tilvejebragt siden afslutningen på 2. verdenskrig.
European leaders, including those from France, Germany, the UK, the Nordic nations, Denmark, Poland, Spain, they've all really backed Denmark, reaffirming Greenland's sovereignty and rejecting any sort of allied action against Greenland. They will not stand with the US in taking any action against Greenland. On January 12th, NATO addressed the crisis, but carefully. Asked to respond directly to Trump's refusal to rule out force, here is NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
So when it comes to the Arctic region, we have to work together as an alliance, and that's exactly what we are doing. And we are now putting more details to the next step to make sure that we indeed can do that as a collective alliance.
Rutte did acknowledge that the increased amount of shipping activity, the opening up of the Arctic, does increase the possibility of Russian and Chinese threats to the European and North American Arctic, which is true. But he did not endorse Trump's claims of any sort of threat increasing around Greenland. Several NATO nations later confirmed that they are planning some additional activities, a way of really saying that, listen, Donald Trump, we are taking this seriously, we are taking you seriously, we will back Greenland even further than we have to ensure that your concerns about national security can be assuaded. On January 12th, the crisis moved beyond rhetoric and firmly into the hands of lawmakers. Republican Congressman Randy Fine of Florida introduced legislation entitled the Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act. Under the text of the bill, the president is authorized to take steps as may be necessary, including negotiations with the Kingdom of Denmark to annex or otherwise acquire Greenland as a territory of the United States. Now, the legislation does not declare annexation, but it provides authority for the executive branch to pursue it. The bill further states that once Greenland is annexed or acquired, the president must submit a report to Congress detailing such changes to federal law as the president may determine necessary to admit the newly acquired territory as a state. Now, this isn't an act of war against Greenland, or it doesn't specifically authorize the use of military force, but it places annexation and eventual statehood into US law text for the first time. It puts it into writing. In interviews about Greenland, President Trump has also invoked history to question the right of Denmark to currently have control of Greenland.
I'm a fan of Denmark too, I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also.
All right, well, there's lots to unpack here. Firstly, the United States and Denmark have a century-old treaty that directly addresses sovereignty in the region. In 1916, the US signed and ratified the Treaty of the Danish West Indies, transferring what are now the US Virgin Islands from Denmark to the United States for about $25 million. And as part of that agreement, the Denmark explicitly recognized Denmark's sovereign title over Greenland. Legal scholars will note that this treaty remains in force under international law, and that articles of state succession, recognition, territorial title, such as those that are codified in the Vienna Convention of the Succession of States, continue to underpin Denmark's internationally recognized governance of Greenland. Secondly, regarding the statement about boats landing there 500 years ago, and that, well, the US probably had boats landing there 500 years ago as well. Right, well, the first known evidence of Nordic, maybe not Danish, but Nordic settlement in Greenland goes back about 1,000 years to the 10th century. But even if we didn't take that into consideration, even if we were just talking about 500 years ago, the US didn't exist as the state. The United States didn't exist 500 years ago. So how did it land boats there 500 years ago? I need an answer. I need an answer on this. And what I would consider to be the most important piece of information here, do you really want to open up the yeehaw can of worms that is, colonization doesn't establish a legal precedent for land ownership? Come on, but it takes 0.5 milliseconds of thought to realize why that's a bad idea for the United States to be talking about this. Well, this has been the last week. This has been a week, all this. This has been a week. This has been the last week in a rapidly deteriorating peaceful Arctic. I hope this has been a nice, useful summary for you. I'm sorry if this becomes outdated within 2 days of publishing. In fact, tell you what, let's just check something else hasn't happened. Okay, everyone, so yeah, I'm editing the video and more has happened. Okay, a lot more has happened. Here
nu står
is
vi med en
Greenlandic
geopolitisk
Prime Minister Jens
krise,
Frederik Nielsen.
og hvis vi skal vælge mellem USA og Danmark her og nu, så vælger vi Danmark. Vi vælger NATO. Vi vælger kongeriget Danmark. Vi vælger EU.
So to be very clear here, he is explicitly saying that his nation chooses Denmark. Out of the two possible options which are currently available to Greenland, independence may be an option in the near future. They choose Denmark and they'd reject the United States. Of course, Donald Trump has weighed in on this matter. So, posting on Truth Social, NATO, tell Denmark to get them out of here now. 2 dog sleds won't do it, only the USA can. He followed that up, okay. The US needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. continues repeating some stuff that we've already talked about. It is vital for the golden dome we are building, which is referring to a missile defense system that they have proposed for the northern regions. And then to top all this off, today there is a very important meeting between Danish, Greenlandic foreign ministers with the US government. This is everything that's happened in the last week in Greenland. This is the Arctic Beyond in association with the Rorschach Arctic Update. Thank you for listening. Thank you for spending some of your time with me today. I'm Jack Ball. Stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.